early Sunday morning to you. I am Tatiana Cash. Welcome into Leading Edge. I know Jeff Smith typically does it, but I figured I'd give him a break, see what happens when they give me the reins. Dun, dun, dun. Now today we have two special guests from the Neighborhood Health Association, the Neighborhood Health Association CEO Doni Miller, and the Resource Workshop organizer Monica Morales. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us this morning. How are you?
You're so welcome. We're great.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you to both. Yeah. Now, let's get right to one of the most exciting things that we're going to be talking about, which is that free workshop. It's going to be on October 11th from 9 until 1. Now, Monica, since you organized it first, Doni, we'll let the young one go first. Yes. Tell me a little bit about this workshop, seeing how you're the one who kind of put it together. Why did we do this?
Well, the workshop's titled Superheroes Need Support Too, and then it's a resource workshop for grandparents and kinship caregivers. And, I work at Neighborhood Health Association, and we, do our best to kind of serve the needs in the community. And just over the years, we recognize the concern and just the increase of grandparents and kin raising kids nowadays. It's increased significantly in the state of Ohio. About 25% of kids that are removed from the home are removed and placed in a home with grandparents or a kinship caregiver. So we wanted to be able to provide a resource workshop to let individuals who, are living, in this situation know that there's support out there for you. So, that's the main reason we're doing it, just because it's needed, obviously, and we want to again, try and meet that need as best we can.
Well, if we're talking kinship, Doni, jump in if you want for me. When we're talking kinship, obviously this is a family-related thing. So, they likely raise their own kids. They know what they're doing. Why are we helping them out in a sense?
There are so many challenges that grandparents face when they're raising their kids, or when they're raising their grandkids, or folks who are raising kids that are not their own. And we think, and especially in some of our cultures, like African American culture, Latino culture, we tend to just take family in and raise them because that's just what we do as part of our culture. But there are lots of challenges that come with that. We take kids in, and we may not be financially able to support this new set of responsibilities that we have, or we don't know that there are all kinds of legal responsibilities that go along with taking care of a child. For instance, who gives consent for health care? Who gives consent for educational issues? Who manages court appearances and that sort of thing? We don't think about that generally. We just think about the child that needs the care. And what Monica has done, she's done an amazing job with this workshop for NHA. We have a ton of partners too that I want to make sure we give a good shout out to before we leave you this morning. What they've done is pull together resources that say, look, there are ways that make this easier for you. There are financial resources out there for you. There are all kinds of legal resources out there for you that help. Area Office on Aging, but I won't get into Monica's list of things here. But
I'll just chime in here if you don't mind, but that is what we did. We focused the workshop on the most common challenges that kinship caregivers face, and that is, the legal aspect, financial, physical and mental health, social, family relationships, and then accessing services. So, even though it's maybe someone's grandparent raising the child and they're getting assistance or guidance from the Area Office on Aging, for example, they may also need to know where they can get services for mental health, that they're not aware of. Children are going through traumatic situations, because they obviously were removed from the home. And then the caregiver also is going through a dramatic change. It's a big change in their life to take on that responsibility. So during the workshop, we want to make sure that we will make sure and stress to the caregiver the importance of self-care and taking care of themselves as well. They don't think about that because they're in the way, but we consider them superheroes for doing what they're doing and providing the children stability and a comforting home and whatever else they need. So we want to celebrate them, and make sure they know to take care of themselves too.
Right. We have an amazing keynote speaker coming. No better expert than former Judge Connie Zemmelman will be on tap that day to give the keynote. And she is absolutely able to answer any single question that a caregiver might have, because that's what she did her whole career as an attorney and a judge. So. And it's free. We need to say it's free.
About to say, much stress. It is free.
It is free.
Please, free. Come.
Yeah.
No, one thing I will say, because it's exciting, but at the same time, because I love the fact self-care, this is important. We're taking care of family. It's, what we always want.
Right.
But at the same time, let's say that I'm seeing writing on the wall that my hypothetical brother-in-law, things are not looking good.
Right.
I probably am going to have to take in my nieces and nephews.
Right.
But that seems like a lot, because you just listed off a lot of things.
It is.
So if I know it might be coming, can I also come to this workshop?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can come to the workshop even if you're a caregiver for an adult. It doesn't have to be for a child. There's resources out there for everyone. And we want to be able to connect and introduce people to resources that they might not be familiar with right now. So,
yeah. Tatiana, one of the things that I want to re-stress that Monica mentioned is the importance of the mental health. I'm going to call it a burden, although a caregiver would probably not call it a burden. But the mental health stress that folks face when they are adding another person to their family. They're bringing along the stress that that young person suffered in their family. And this, as Monica mentioned, this whole new environment that they are now responding to. And we tend to just push through, we just tend to get it done, right? It's not good. It's not good for anybody. And so there's real attention being paid to that piece of this process.
Ladies, thank you so much. Of course, we're going to keep talking, but I suppose we should let a commercial or two play. So we'll pause this conversation for a minute, and of course, we will be right back. Welcome back. Here on Leading Edge, we are talking about a very important fun resource program, but I want to mention why the NHA is actually hosting a free event that is open to anyone. We've got some facts on why it's necessary. Approximately 2.6 million kids across our country live in kinship care. In Ohio, more than 227,000 children under the age of 18 are living with caregiver family members who actually aren't their parents. And specifically when we're talking about here in Ohio, 1 in 6 adults are family caregivers whose children raised by kinship caregivers, so they have less trauma, fewer mental and behavioral health issues, better permanency outcomes, and sibling connectivity to it. And then one more fact for you. According to AARP, Ohio family caregivers are given an estimated 1.27 billion hours of care to parents, spouses, partners, and friends back in 2017. Ladies, that is a lot of good details. So while we have all this data and this importance, this necessary, why is it that we're obviously doing this event, you would say?
You know what, to take care of our own. We work to serve those in our community. And sometimes, you mentioned earlier, why aren't you working somewhere else? Because you know what, sometimes you have to learn to take care of your community, the people in your community. And we're doing it because, like I said, it's definitely an increasing concern around, nowadays, just, the drug epidemic, everything are actually, that's the #1 cause of children being removed from their homes. So, you have to recognize what's going on and then just, try your best to meet the needs in the community. And that's what we're doing here with, through us. And we're not only putting this on ourselves, but we're putting this event together with our community partners. If I can mention them real quick, the Area Office on Aging, NAMI, Greater Toledo, the Believe Center, so make sure I'm not forgetting. Lucas County Children's Services. So we're,
In sync.
In Sync LLC. Yes.
LLC.
So we've
not
all.
the group.
I was wondering. I didn't want to jump the gun. I figured I'd wait.
So we've been working together, collaborating to try and make this, a good resource support event.
Yeah.
So.
The other thing too is that this sits squarely in the seat of our mission. So this organization has been around for almost 60 years, started by community folks who said, you know what, I'm really, really tired of watching my neighbors die because they don't have insurance, and poor people are proud people. You know, people tend to think that if you have little in this country, then you're lazy and you don't care and you know you don't like want to contribute, and that is so wrong and so damaging and so hurtful. I just need to say it again, poor people are proud people. So there were opportunities certainly for people to go to emergency rooms for care, but you know what, if they didn't have the money, they didn't go, and so they were dying from things that they could be treated for really easily, like prostate cancer and diabetes and those sorts of things. What we try to do is to change the course of health for people in this town. And this workshop fits squarely in the middle of that. Our population is getting older, and there are kids, our issues in this community, in this society are getting bigger and more pronounced, more right in your face. And so what Monica and her team have done is to put together this workshop to say, you know what, you're not out here doing this by yourself. This is what Neighborhood Health Association strives to address. We strive to make your life, to level that playing field, so at least you have the same opportunity to live the life that you want to live as everybody else. And God love you for taking care of your grandkids or your nieces or whoever it is. We want to help you too.
It just feels like sometimes such a big ask to do that of the family. And I just wonder, what is the best way if someone is realizing that they're probably going to have to do this? What are some good words of advice, obviously, besides coming to the October 11th completely free event? What else should you make sure to tell someone?
Well, for one, seek support. You know, there's, you know, a lot of, you know, if you're a senior and you're raising kids, you know, actually, when I was assigned this job, Doni had no clue, but I was actually raised by my grandparents. So working through this is kind of like bringing things back into a full perspective and full circle, because, you know, now I understand, like, my grandparents, you know, what her generation, what goes on in the home stays in the home. You do not seek support from nobody. You're taken care of, you're good, you're loved. That's it, you know, but we just want people to know, like, you know, go out there, step outside your comfort zone, you know, seek support, seek help, you know, take care of yourself, you know, whatever goes on with you internally reflects on the children that you're taking care of, you know, so, you know, it's important.
And be okay to talk about it.
Exactly.
Right?
Don't be afraid, you know, it's different nowadays, you know, when I was younger, you know, you didn't talk about it. Today, there's so many more conversations, there's so much support out there, and there's people trying to give it to you, you know, like us, we're putting on a workshop. So, you know, take advantage of that and just, you know, do your best to be comfortable with it and connect with other people who are in your situation.
Well, Monica, Doni, thank you so much for taking the time. Again, these ladies are from the Neighborhood Health Association, and we are talking about the free resource workshop for grandparents and kinship caregivers raising children. Right there on your screen, write it down. Again, it's free. They said you can come. You're invited. I might not be. October 11th from 9 until 1 p.m. It's going to be at Cedar Tree Church on South Burn Road. We will be right back. Hey, thanks for sticking with us. Now, when it comes to some fun facts for you, let me give these to you. The National Center for Drug Abuse Statistics finds 50% of people 12 and older have actually used illicit drugs at least once. Additionally, there have been 700,000 drug overdose deaths in the U.S. since 2000, and as a nation, we're already nearing 1 million. So to help combat this issue locally, Team Recovery is working to fix this. I have here with me Team Recovery President Juan Duarte. Now, I know it's a specific section you're president of. We'll get to that, I promise. As well as the Team Recovery Treatment Services Vice President of Operations. Brian, you got a long title. Brian Herrick. Now, you two have, as part of Team Recovery, one thing I definitely want to get to, because I thought it was a really interesting thing to say, it's a new approach to an old problem. What exactly does that mean for Team Recovery?
Well, like you had mentioned, so many people are affected by what we now know as substance use disorders and mental health disorders. But the problem is not new. It's not a new problem. It's been since the dawn of man, since man first crushed grapes and made wine. There's been problems, and And throughout the years since, back before programs like Alcoholics Anonymous, for example, the only recourse for somebody was committance into an institution, sometimes medical intervention. And as we've evolved and understood more about this disease, different treatment models have arose. And what we've noticed is that all treatment models work for some people, but none of them work for all people. So our new approach to an old problem is in some ways kind of innovative, but in some ways, to me, is kind of common sense, really. And what we're doing is taking bits and pieces from all different successful treatment models, rolling them together, and then giving the people that we serve something that they feel like oftentimes they don't have anymore, and that's the freedom of choice.
And a lot of that, I think, I want to piggyback off him, is looking at things that have evidence-based practices that have clearly worked for years, for many years, and for us to look at those systems, what is working, what's antiquated and not working, because our culture's changing, society's changing, all these things are happening, and so for us to make an evaluation and look at what the problem really is and try to address it where it's really at, instead of just leaning heavily on what has worked, but also look at what's really happening now. Let's be practical, let's be honest, and see what we can do to improve.
Now, well, folks are waking up this morning thinking things, and you think immediately when it comes to addiction, drugs, alcohol abuse, clearly that person's a bad person, and that's their fault. Why is that nowhere near a good tactic to approach anything? Because it's hard, and it can be damaging not only to themselves, but to family members. But why is it not helpful to be like, and you're a terrible person?
Well, one of the things I can lean into on that is 1 in 4 children are living in a household that experiences alcoholism or addiction. Those are some national averages as well. And so from that standpoint, if we look at those numbers and those stats, like, everybody's affected here, right? Somebody knows somebody that has a family member or a friend or somebody that is experiencing this. And increasing or acknowledging the stigma as it sits isn't really doing anybody good, right? It's us biting off our nose in spite of our face, and that's not helpful at all. But it also just continues to perpetuate the problem. We're really not addressing the problem when we look at it from a moral standpoint. What's happening with addiction is that our midbrain's hijacked. I can tell you from experience, I'm in recovery myself. There was a lot of times where I knew my heart was good and I knew I wanted to be doing something different. But once that took over my life, it felt really difficult for me to find the strength to have a choice in the matter. I made a lot of decisions that I didn't agree with personally. And so, it wasn't until people extended their hands, offered support, and offered options to me, and I really felt that I improved and got better. And thankfully for me, and luckily for me, was through team recovery. I'm a byproduct of team recovery.
So with team recovery being a bit, case in point, team recovery doing well, how can you, I suppose, how do you help? What do you, because like you said, it's not cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all. So what do you guys do?
So I'll let Brian kind of jump in here in 1 second. We have our treatment center, which offers treatment resources, and I'll let him touch on that. But we also have other supports as well through our nonprofit, such as treatment linkage. We have a lifeline. If somebody were to call and they were affected by addiction or mental health, it doesn't matter what it is. What we try to do there is meet that person where they're at. If you want to vent, you need support on the phone, we're going to do that. If you want to be linked to a treatment center and you need a detox, we're going to find the best option for you. So we're not just looking to place people in services or connect them to our resources. We're looking, where does this make sense for you, your circumstances, your situation? And we're really trying to treat the person right where they're at. And as well, on top of that, we have our Families After Addiction or Death support group meeting. It's called FAD. It's on Thursdays from 7 o'clock till 8:30 p.m. at 4352 West Sylvania Avenue. And what we're doing there is trying to help the family members cope, right? And we have people that are in recovery, or myself. I went there when I was actively using drugs and said, I need help. I was with my mother. I reached out. I called out for help. And Team Recovery and the drug abuse response teams, DART, helped me get into treatment. And my life and my family's life has improved since then. And then if we want to compound it and just keep going and shooting for the moon, we have our Choices and Consequences, our original speaking engagement that we do with children and kids grades 7 through 12. And what we're trying to do is prevent us even having to treat the symptom, right? Smart. So we're aware that what we're doing is treating individuals as they come into the issue, and a big focus for us is treating it before it even happens. those numbers, 1 in 4 children live in a house that has addiction or alcoholism history. And on top of that, they're 4 times as likely at that point to develop those same issues themselves. And then on top of that, they're double at risk to develop mood or anxiety disorders. So, us perpetuating a stigma seems pretty ludicrous to me.
Makes sense. Brian, quickly, when it comes to just what can you guys offer? Because, Juan mentioned quite a bit, but let's add in anything he might have missed.
I'm also in recovery like Juan, and many of us are that started, not all, but many of us are. And so I've experienced treatment myself. And what you mentioned the stigma that society sometimes has on people who suffer from this disease. And almost as damaging and dangerous is the idea that the substance itself is the main problem. And the reality of that is just simply not true. From a holistic approach, we have to look at the whole person. We have to look at things like housing, for fair and affordable housing for people, jobs, and income, also physical health and wellness. Many people have diseases, diabetes, hepatitis as a result of their drug use and abuse. And without addressing those issues as well, somebody's chance of recovering and staying recovered are very, very small. So we just take a holistic approach to it.
I love it. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate the time. Team Recovery offering many different options when it comes to the fact of, again, approaching a new approach, there we go, to an old problem. We will be right back. Special thanks to the Neighborhood Health Association as well as Team Recovery. Thanks so much for joining us here on Leading Edge. I'm Tatiana Cash. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday.